The New York State Department of Transportation presents the DOT POD.
And welcome into the DOT POD. I'm Josh Heller.
And I'm Anya Cardos.
And we are delighted to have you joining us. Well, the New York State Department of Transportation prioritizes safety 24/7, 365 to ensure our roadways remain safe for everyone who uses them. Now, every time we travel, whether it's our daily commute or shuttling our kids to school, we share the road with large commercial trucks and motor carriers. But have you ever thought about the people responsible for making sure these trucks and their drivers are safe and fit for the road?
Well, if you have, that's what we're getting into today. Today, we're highlighting the inspectors who are with DOT's Motor Carrier Safety Program, the dedicated people who are working to minimize crashes involving commercial vehicles and incidents with hazardous materials by conducting inspections all across the state. We are very pleased to welcome our guest today, Larry Johnson. He is an Intermodal Transportation Specialist 1 and the Region 1 Truck Inspector Supervisor, as well as Danielle Adair. She is a motor vehicle inspector with DOT's Office of Modal Safety and Security. Welcome to both of you, Danielle and Larry. Hi.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in, guys.
Yeah.
Let's kick things off as we usually do with you guys sharing a little bit about yourselves, what you do here at DOT.
Yeah. Again, I'm Larry Johnson, Intermodal Transportation Specialist 1. I basically supervise 5 inspectors in the Capital Region, and we have currently about 12 law enforcement officials that also do inspections and are certified just like we are on a national scale.
And Danielle?
Yes, I'm Danielle Adair. I'm a motor vehicle inspector with the Capital Area Region, and I do the roadside inspections, and we work with the local PD too.
I guess we'll talk about your backgrounds, because what kind of led you not only to DOT but through your DOT adventures, shall we say? So we'll start with you. What did you start out doing? What was your kind of way that you got here?
Yeah, I started at EM in Region 1, which is the Capital Region for the Albany area, as a mechanic. I've been a mechanic pretty much all my life. 3 years military as a mechanic, so it was sort of in my blood, and I've been doing that. And then one day I actually saw another inspector, and he's like, "Hey, this is what we do," and I was like, that's really interesting, to try to help whatever we can do to, stop all the crashes and everything like that.
And how long you've been with doing the inspections?
Yeah, I've been about 20 years as doing inspections.
And Danielle, what was your journey here? What was your path?
So I grew up in the trucking industry, and I went through and I started actually with New York State Thruway as a mechanic in the Amsterdam area. And then about 6 years ago, I took a test to get the motor vehicle inspector position. I've been with DOT for 6 years.
Excellent. Well, like I said, welcome to you both. So, now we know about you. Let's talk about what it is you guys do, right? So what do the inspections involve? What kind of specific things do you guys look for? Take us kind of through what an inspection, would be like for someone who's pulling in.
Well, unfortunately, it could be lengthy. It depends on the number of violations that we find. But we basically look at the vehicles. We're looking at carriers. We're looking at brakes, tires, lights. We also look at the driver, make sure that he's not tired and fatigued. We look at their license. We can actually see past inspections from all across North America to make sure that if they're coming from another state, that they're safe to go through this state also.
You were talking about violations. I'm curious, what are some of the most typical violations that you usually see?
The most typical we see on the roadside is flat tires, lights out, drivers not having medical cards, or the companies not having the proper authority or the right DOT numbers.
What are the medical cards? I'm curious what those are.
So anybody that is driving a commercial motor vehicle. So our definition of commercial motor vehicle is anything over 10,000 pounds in commerce, whether they're driving a commercial licensed vehicle or a non-CDL, non-commercial licensed vehicle. If they're going across state lines, they need a DOT medical card, which is just a certificate from a doctor saying that they're medically qualified to drive. And then if they are driving inside the state on a non-CDL or mainly a Class D license, and they got their first New York State license after 2004, they need a DOT medical card no matter what. And if they have a CDL license, either a Class A or Class B, they need a DOT medical card no matter when they're driving, across state lines or in.
You mentioned CDL. For those who don't know what a CDL is, explain.
So a CDL is a commercial driver's license, and it's to drive, well, CDL Class B is for any vehicle that is greater than 26,000 pounds, and a CDL A is a vehicle that is combination greater than 26 and trailer greater than 10,000 pounds.
So basically, like these are obviously large vehicles. I can't just hop into a semi and start driving it around legally.
No, so it's either a semi, like your conventional tractor trailers, or even like a small pickup with a trailer, and it's all based on the weights. Whether you register the vehicle, we actually put it on scales and weigh it, or what your vehicle identification tag says that the gross vehicle weight rating is.
I'm curious if you could explain, because when someone's driving down the road and say they see a sign that says inspections are happening, all the trucks are heading in that direction, but not all of them are getting inspected. So I'm curious,
Correct.
When they drive in there, what are things that you guys are looking for, that the authorities are looking for to be like, okay, we're gonna inspect that one versus a different one?
Yeah.
Well, theoretically, when they're coming into the road check area, we're looking for seatbelt use, make sure they're not on their cell phone, making sure they have the right credentials. If the vehicle has a defect that we already know that it's an out-of-service defect, we will definitely pull them into the lane and do the inspection. Some of those things you could see while they're driving up to us. Some of them you can't. So we will just pick a random vehicle and say, okay, we're going to go ahead and inspect this entire vehicle, including the driver and the carrier.
Now, obviously, almost all of these people have places to go, things to do. Getting inspected, probably not high on their list of things they want to be doing. How are
Correct.
the interactions, with drivers? I mean, again, they understand that it's the way it is, but that has to lead to an interesting kind of dynamic when you're dealing with people on a regular basis.
Yeah, they're on a time crunch and everything as
Right.
well, right?
Yeah. It all depends basically on the individual. Some people, they don't like it. They're pretty offended about it. But then there's other drivers that we have come up to us and say, hey, could you please inspect this vehicle? I want to make sure that this is safe, because, my kids are out there and everything like that. I'm driving this down the road. I might have missed something this morning on my post-trip or my pre-trip. So, please look at this. And that happens sometimes. It's just a game as to, how late you are and what kind of person you are, really.
I'm curious, when people are kind of agitated, like Josh was saying, it's probably not on their high priority list. You're mentioning some of the good guys out there who
Correct.
are saying, hey, you know what? I want to know. I want feedback here, and I want to pick your brain a little bit, and I want you to look over my rig. How do you, when someone isn't that like that, how do you work with them so that they better understand why you're there and why you're doing the job you do?
Right. I sort of try to explain the regulations to them and say, okay, look, this is what we're looking for in this instant. If the brakes don't work, you might have a problem stopping. If you're tired or fatigued, I'm going to place you out of service because you're tired and fatigued. This is the reason why, is because, again, you could fall asleep. Just try to talk them through the violations as to what is safe and what is not. And a lot of times, once you talk to them and get them talking, they realize that, hey, you know what, we're just out here, trying to make the road safer.
Yeah, Danielle, do you have any personal stories about any drivers that you've kind of learned when you walked away? Wow.
That are safe for work.
Yeah, that are safe.
You opened this up, just so you know.
Yeah, so we have had some that are really good and really want to work with us and are compliant. And then we have had others, unfortunately, whether it's interactions with other officers or just they're running late, having a bad day. And those ones we've had it as bad as where the drivers will literally say, I am not helping you or not dealing with the inspection, and get out of their truck and walk away and just sit on the corner until we're ready to go.
Really?
Yes.
Do you need them to
Yes.
move the truck and everything, but they're just refusing
Yeah.
to?
So
Correct.
we have to, when we do our roadside inspection, we always ask them for all their documents. And then once we do our inspections, we had to have them do their lights, their brakes, and all that stuff. So the drivers do have to have a interaction and have to work with us to prove to us that their vehicle is safe to drive down the road.
So they had a temper tantrum is basically what happens. They had
Pretty
a
much.
toddler's temper tantrum.
Yes.
I get it. We've all been there. We've all been there. So it brings up another point when you're dealing with someone like that. You partner with law enforcement, which seems like there are certain situations where that is necessary, where the gravitas that carries is necessary. How do you and your fellow inspectors partner with law enforcement to help keep the state highways safe?
Yeah, well, we work with them pretty much every single day. A law enforcement officer is basically required to be at all of our road checks. So we have them there. Most of them have body cameras, and you wouldn't believe the response we get when the officer stands next to us and just points at the body camera.
Really?
Because
Okay.
a lot of the drivers don't realize that they're being recorded,
So that's
even
a
though
smile, you're on candid camera.
correct.
Type of feel.
Yeah, and that helps a lot. That helps a lot to just sort of bring everybody down.
Yeah, it kind of lowers the temperature a
Correct.
little bit. And
Yep.
do you feel sometimes, we live in interesting times, you feel sometimes like having officers there is also, they are your partner, but they can also provide a level of safety. Let's be honest about it.
Correct.
You never know, you're meeting strangers. You could be meeting them on a bad day, a good day. You never know.
Yes, and we've had instances in the past where people are hiding in vehicles and stuff like that. So
Really?
and we check on a regular basis on every single inspection. We check for drugs and alcohol.
I want to go over some of the, you talked about some of the more common things that you find, issues that you find. When you do find an issue, depending on its severity, what are the steps that happen? Is it completely put out? Are they able to fix things on the spot versus having to, have someone come in? What are the kind of, talk me through kind of the situations of, all right, we found something, next steps for both you as well as, for those drivers.
Okay. So one of our high out of service violations is a flat tire. So you would come in and I would check that tire to see if it was flat. If it's less than half the rating on a sidewall, CVSA, Commercial Vehicle Safety Administration, says that that's one of our critical items in our out of service criteria, and that basically tells us that we have to place this vehicle out of service because it's not safe to go down the roadway with a flat tire. So we would actually do that with a tire pressure gauge, and then I would tell the driver, you're going to be placed out of service. We would then affix the sticker into the windshield or on the vehicle saying that this vehicle is out of service until the out of service defect is corrected. And once the out of service defect is corrected, if that's the only out of service defect, then they continue their trip. So they would basically call their carrier and get somebody in there, either an outside vendor or them themselves, to fix the out of service violation, and then move on from there.
So they can go from being out of service to back in service,
Correct.
Quickly.
Yep.
While they're there on that trip.
Correct.
I'm sure other times that's not necessarily the case, where it's larger problems, bigger problems that maybe can't be fixed at that particular time.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of those, but that's usually revolves around like operating authority. You need special authority to haul someone else's property. So if you're getting paid to haul somebody else's property, you need operating authority. So if you don't have that, then you're going to be placed out of service, and then the carrier has to get operating authority. So in that case, you have two choices. You could either unload the product or you can just get it towed.
Well, Danielle, let's go to you. I spoke with a few people with DOT's Office of Modal Safety and Security, and they tell me that you really shine here at DOT and that you do an amazing job. Your training and your performance is stellar. You recently took part in a national competition for the work that you do as an inspector. Tell us about this competition, what it involves, the scope of other people representing various agencies across the country. How big is this competition, and what did you participate in?
So a couple of years ago, I went to the, it's called an Inspector Championship, and it's put on by FMCSA, CVSA, and every state sends one inspector to this competition. So every state, it's pretty much anybody in North America, because it's the U.S. states. Usually there's 3 to 4 from Canada and like 3 or 4 representing Mexico. So there's usually about 50, 60 people there that are competing against each other, but we are also going through trainings and just networking with each other and kind of bouncing things off and seeing how everybody else does it. And at the end of the week, we go and we take part in like a competition, and it's of like doing roadside inspections and paperwork and different things like that to see how everybody's doing it and to like kind of compete against each other to see who's the best in the whole country.
Do they throw any like little monkey wrenches in there? No pun intended on the wrench part of it. But do they throw some curveballs in there for you?
They do. So what they do is they actually take like a tractor trailer, or they do a hazmat situation or a passenger vehicle, and they kind of mock it up to have violations. And we got to see if we can find all the violations. Usually, depending on how they do it, it could be 20, 30 violations on it, whether they're the severe violations, out of services, or the non-out of service violations. And you get points based on how many you find and if you write a violation that wasn't a violation. So they kind of go on that. And in the last couple of years since I have been there, I still am in contact with the other inspectors that I was out there with, and we kind of bounce things off each other, or if we ask questions about things that are happening in their state versus our state, or it's another resource that if we can't find information on like their driver's license information, or if we see a carrier that's up here or somewhere else that is not the best, we can always contact them and they can kind of look at them further.
It has to be, for you, an honor to be chosen to be a part of that. I mean, you're talking about the best of the best, and like you said, not just this country, but also Canada, Mexico. Notwithstanding that Larry did it the year before, but I mean, whatever, it's fine. I'm sure it was great. No, but I mean, it is. It's so the top people that has to feel good.
It does. It is intimidating too at the one point, because you're going against everybody that's the best of their state. So it's kind of like you're a little on a pedestal anyways. So it's good to talk to these people and see where they come from, and it makes you a better inspector in the long run.
And you mentioned part of it is training also. It's not just the competition. Yes. How much of that are you able to bring back, to the other inspectors, here in New York, and kind of let them know what you saw and best practices that you found out about that, you can potentially pass on to them?
Yeah, that was a good thing about that is it was actually like a 5-day thing we were out there, and like 3 of the days was just talking about training and some of the things that either that they newly changed some of the rules, or the things that like we also talked one day just about what we like or what we don't like about some of the rules. So it also helps them either make the rules or adjust, and then we all can be on the same page of what the rules are, and everybody has the same idea of how to enforce the rules.
It's very humbling that when you're standing there and you're actually with another, I mean, there's one representative for every single state, and then there's usually 3 from Canada and 3 from Mexico, and you're competing against them, but they're like your friends, because you do the same job and you talk and you just be with each other and just bounce ideas off. Hey, this is how I do this. This is how I do this. It's like, oh, okay. And you build friends. So we're calling Connecticut and saying, hey, this is happening in here. What are you doing there? Or if we have a driver, we could get a driver that's from California, and we could get him here, and we could be like, hey, well, this guy got inspected in California on this day, and this was the problem. So what are we doing here? We're in New York now. So we can actually reach out to those people that we went to the competition with, and they could help us out in that.
Danielle, I'm curious about this. You work in a traditionally male-dominated field. There are a lot of women here, and women in leadership. We also have a woman commissioner here as well. We have a lot of stellar women here. I'm just curious, would you like to see more women join your ranks and to know that they have a home here at DOT, and kind of, especially like the next generation of women?
Yeah, I pretty much say on that is, it'd be nice to have more women or other people in it, but it's making sure that you're qualified and that you can do the same job as everybody else. Doesn't matter who you are. And just that if you like the job or want to do the job, don't let other people tell you can't do it, because there's not a lot of people like you in there, and just go for it.
Right. I think sometimes when you see someone who maybe looks like you in a career, that kind of clicks. You're like, hey,
Right.
you know, I think I can do this. I think I can get that training. And it opens up your mind to the opportunities.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to bring up, and Larry, you can speak to this, we talked about working with different states and things like that. When it comes to, this program that New York State has, how does it compare to other states? How do we compare, when, not competition-wise, but just generally wise, this department, how does it compare to what other states are doing?
I'm thinking it's right up there with the best. I wouldn't have those numbers, but I think we're up there with the best.
And from that, obviously you get kind of bogged down in the day-to-day, but, we know there's a higher purpose to this. We've talked about the overarching reason for this. What do you want those drivers, whether they're, as friendly as can be or whether they're having a bad day, to know? What is, ultimately what you want everybody out there to understand as to why it is that you guys do what it is you do on a daily basis?
Right. And I just would like to say, we are out there to reduce the numbers of fatal and serious crashes involving commercial motor vehicles, and to remove carriers and drivers that pose an imminent hazard to the rest of the people that are driving down the road. That's what we're out there for. That's what we do.
I feel that what you're doing is really keeping the rest of us safe. So thank you so much for your jobs and for being so invested in this and being so good at what you do. I'm just curious. You face a lot of different challenges every day. Sometimes people aren't happy to see you. When you come home at the end of the day, are you pretty happy with your roles? You like what you do, it seems to me.
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
This is by far the best job in the world.
And you have to take a bit of pride with that. I mean, but what you guys are doing, it's not just there has to be, buy-in completely from you guys that you're doing what needs to be done, and there has to be pride in that.
Absolutely.
So when we have time, we like to ask our guests a few questions at the end of our episode. And that would be, what are your favorite road trips? So each one of you, which one is your absolute favorite road trip in New York State? And what are you always jamming out to when you're on those road trips? Larry?
My favorite road trip, it actually involves work. It is going to Plattsburgh, going to the northern border,
Really?
northern Canadian border. We have a commercial vehicle unit up there, and we actually have a facility up there that does inspections. And it's just a nice ride all the way up there through the mountains. You see everything. You see the lakes, the rivers. It's pretty good. And I don't really listen to music a lot. I'm a Joe Rogan guy.
So you're a podcast guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Danielle.
So I don't have like one particular place or things. I just kind of like to go out and go to places that are kind of a little more remote and like just the scenery and looking at that. And pretty much what I'm listening to is just any country music.
Yeah, I like country music. You like old, new, everything?
More old, but everything.
Okay. Little Hank in there too?
Yes.
Hank Sr. and Jr.?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's always
Love it.
good. It's all good.
Well, I do want to thank both of you guys, again, not just for coming in and chatting with us, certainly that as well, but again, thank you guys for the work that you do. rain or shine, it gets hot, it gets cold, it doesn't particularly matter. You guys are out there through the elements. We complain about, it's cold and rainy and gross, but we're also working inside. So, you guys certainly are out there in the elements doing work that needs to be done, important work. And again, on behalf of us here and all the drivers, thank you guys for doing what you do and helping keep us safe.
All right. And there's a lot of us out there. So there's not just us. So there is a lot of us out there.
Yes. Thank you to all of you guys who are out there doing that. So that's just about going to do it for us here. Anya, good one here today.
Oh, that was great. You know, I've been really interested in doing this discussion today and learning about this kind of work because it's something that I don't know the inner workings of this, and now I do.
I've driven and seen signs for inspections, pull over. Of course, my little Honda Civic doesn't need to. But I've always wondered what happens there, and actually I've had a chance to be in a couple of these since I've worked with DOT. So I'm glad to we're able to shed light on this to people who may not be fully aware. So thanks again to our guests, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. However you may be doing so, you can reach on out podcast@dot.ny.gov. That's the easiest way to get us. podcast@dot.ny.gov. So until next time, she's Anya. I'm Josh. We're right here on the DOT BOD.